When Ryan threw the engagement ring into the champagne glass, the whole room was laughing at me. Champagne dripped down my hair, my mascara was running. I heard Ryan's new flame, a starlet named Sophia, nestle into his arms and say in a soft, cloying voice, "Ryan, darling, what a waste. Will the diamond be ruined in the champagne?" Ryan pinched her cheek, his eyes sweeping over me with disdain, as if I were a piece of trash blocking his path. Out with the old, in with the new. His voice wasn't loud, but it was just loud enough for everyone to hear. Some people can wear the most expensive ring and still not look the part. It's better to just throw it away. The laughter grew louder. My parents, seated at the main table, were flushed red with shame, their heads nearly buried in the tablecloth. My mother's fingers were digging into the fabric so hard her knuckles had turned white. I just stood there, soaked, like a clown. A knife plunged into my heart, followed by a bucket of ice. I was numb with cold. "Chloe," Ryan said, his arm around Sophia, his chin gesturing toward the door. "If you know what's good for you, just leave. Don't ruin my and Sophia's engagement party." He paused, then added with a touch of pity, as if making a grand gesture, "Oh, and for old time's sake, you can have that old BMW parked out front as a breakup fee. Now, don't ever appear in front of me again." The old car he had driven for 3 years and was planning to replace because it was beneath him. That was the buyout price for our 3-year relationship and today's grand humiliation. The cloying sweetness of the champagne mixed with the alcohol churned my stomach. I raised a hand and wiped the liquid from my face. I didn't cry, not a single tear. My gaze swept across Ryan's triumphant face, Sophia's victorious smile as she clung to him, and the mocking, pitying, and amused eyes of the guests. Finally, my eyes landed on my parents' helpless, desperate faces. A fire ignited at the soles of my feet and shot up to the crown of my head. It burned away the ice. In front of everyone, I bent down and reached into the champagne glass where the ring was submerged. The cold liquid and the glass shocked my skin. I felt the cold, hard stone. The room fell silent. Ryan frowned. "Chloe, what are you doing? Have some decency," Sophia chimed in. "Chloe, the ring is dirty now." I ignored them. My fingers closed around the ring. Then, to everyone's astonishment, I suddenly raised my hand, and fiercely hurled the champagne-soaked diamond ring right at Ryan's handsome face. "Ah!" Sophia shrieked and ducked behind him. Ryan instinctively turned his head. The ring grazed his cheekbone and, with a sharp clink, hit the base of the massive champagne tower behind him before rolling into the thick carpet and disappearing. "Ryan," I said, my voice quiet but cutting through the whispers. Every word was laced with ice. "You can keep your trashy ring and your trashy car and play with them yourself." I managed a smile as I watched his face darken. "I wish you and your dear Sophia." I paused, my eyes landing on her terrified face. A bitch for a dog, a match made in heaven. With that, I turned and walked away. My heels made no sound on the thick carpet, but every step felt like I was walking on hot coals. Behind me, a dead silence was followed by an uproar and Ryan's enraged roar. "Chloe, you get back here." I didn't look back. I pushed open the heavy doors of the banquet hall, the doors that symbolized a world I no longer belonged to. The cold air rushed in, it chilled my wet dress to the bone, and it blew away the last lingering warmth of the fantasy I had lived for the past 3 years. Jobless and lovelorn, I was holed up in my cramped, run-down little apartment that cost $2,500 a month, feeling like a dried-out piece of fish. My phone screen was lit up with a text from my landlord, demanding rent. My bank balance was shockingly low. I had taken Ryan's old BMW to a used car lot the same day and sold it as quickly as I could. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me afloat for a while. It wasn't about accepting his charity, it was about survival. I had to live. My job applications went unanswered. The few interviews I landed took a turn the moment they heard my last job was at the Zhou Corporation, where I was optimized out. Ryan had put the word out. In this small circle, it was easy for him to blacklist someone like me. Sophia even took to social media to throw shade at me. Some people just aren't destined for wealth, but they try to force it. And what's the result? Can't even find a decent job. So pathetic. The accompanying photo was of her new limited edition handbag, with Ryan's new multi-million-dollar sports car in the background. The comments were a chorus of "Sophia, you're so kind to even pity her," and "Gold digger got what she deserved." I turned off my phone and threw the instant noodle container in the trash. The woman in the mirror was pale, with dark circles under her eyes, but a fire burned in their depths. I couldn't go on like this. I had to climb out of the pit they had dug for me. I pulled out my old address book and scanned the names. My finger stopped on one. My university senior, Mark. He had joined a well-known tech company and seemed to be doing well. I dialed his number. It rang a few times before he picked up. Hello, who's this? The background was noisy. Mark, it's me, Chloe. Chloe. He paused, trying to remember. Oh, Chloe, long time no see. What made you think of calling me? After a bit of small talk, I got straight to the point. Mark, I heard you're at Origin Tech. Are you guys hiring by any chance? The line went silent for a few seconds. The background noise quieted down. Mark's voice was lower and hesitant. Chloe, it's not that I don't want to help. We are hiring, but with your situation. He trailed off. My heart sank. Ryan already made some calls. Mark sighed. You know how it is. The Zhou family is a big deal, and when the young master speaks, who in this circle wouldn't do him a favor? It's a tough spot. I expected it, but it still felt like a bucket of cold water. But Mark's tone shifted. I do know a place. They're just starting out, hiring urgently. They might not care so much about these things. Where? Atlas Capital. I froze. The name was legendary. One of the top venture capital firms in the country, known for its sharp eye and ruthless execution. They're hiring a junior assistant. I couldn't believe it. Not just an assistant. Mark's voice dropped to a whisper. It's for the CEO, Oliver Xia, his personal assistant. The last one quit suddenly, and they need a replacement urgently. The standards are incredibly high, and the pressure is immense. I heard the last few didn't even last a month, so now they're kind of desperate, and they've loosened the requirements a bit. An internal recommendation might work. Oliver Xia. That name carried far more weight than Zhou, a man at the very top of the pyramid, someone even the Zhou family had to look up to. Mysterious, low-key, and decisive. Mark, could you recommend me? I gripped my phone tighter. Chloe, think this through, Mark said, his tone serious. Oliver Xia is notoriously difficult to work for. His work intensity is said to peel 3 layers of skin off a person. And that place, the politics are deep. Ryan can't touch you there, but that also means, it means I'll have no one to rely on but myself. Exactly. If you can handle it, your future is set. If you can't, you'll crash and burn even harder. He advised, maybe you should reconsider. I looked at my own reflection, at the fire in my eyes, the humiliation of the ring, the mockery from Sophia, the quiet shunning from the industry, and the landlord's text. Mark, my voice was steady. Please, recommend me. I want to try. There was a long silence. All right, he sighed. I'll send your resume over, but let me warn you, Oliver Xia interviews personally, and it's hellishly difficult, and if you get the job, don't blame me for not warning you about the baptism by fire. I want. Thank you, Mark. Atlas Capital's headquarters were on the top floor of the most expensive skyscraper in the city center. Beyond the massive floor-to-ceiling windows, the entire city lay at its feet. The air was thick with the cold, oppressive scent of money and power. I sat on a cold waiting chair, wearing the most expensive business suit I could afford on my credit card. My palms were sweating. The candidates before me came out with faces paler than when they went in. One girl even looked like she had been crying. Next, Chloe Lin. The secretary's voice was flat. I took a deep breath and pushed open the heavy door, a door to another world. The office was vast, minimalist, and decorated in cool tones. Behind a massive desk, a man sat with his back to me, looking out the window. All I could see was the back of his well-shaped head. Sit. His voice was low and steady, devoid of emotion, but it carried an invisible pressure that stole my breath. I sat in the chair across from him, my back ramrod straight. The man slowly turned around. The moment I saw his face, my heart skipped a beat. Oliver Xia. His photos in financial magazines were striking enough, but in person, the oppressive aura he exuded was something a two-dimensional image could never capture. His features were sharp and severe, as if carved from cold jade. He had a high brow and deep-set eyes, as dark and bottomless as ink. When he looked at you, there was no warmth, only a cold, penetrating gaze that seemed to see right through to your bones. He wore a perfectly tailored black shirt, unbuttoned at the top, revealing a sliver of his pale collarbone. It was a casual look, yet it radiated an unapproachable, formidable energy. He picked up a single sheet of paper from his desk. My resume. His fingers were long and slender. Chloe Lin, he said, his voice flat. Yes, Mr. Xia. Last job, Zhou Corporation, Marketing Department, assistant to the director. He looked up, his gaze like a knife. Reason for leaving. There it was, the fatal question. I met his gaze without flinching. Personal reasons. My ex-boyfriend is Ryan Zhou, the heir to the Zhou Corporation. The breakup was not amicable. I said, my tone calm and concise. He felt I was no longer suitable to work there. Oliver's eyebrow twitched almost imperceptibly. He was clearly surprised by my bluntness. So, you were kicked to the curb. His words were merciless. You could put it that way, I admitted. He threw my engagement ring, poured champagne on me. At our engagement party, in front of a lot of people, there was a dead silence in the room. Oliver just looked at me. There was no pity or contempt in his deep, dark eyes, only a pure, analytical scrutiny, as if assessing whether an item's flaws affected its usability. Publicly humiliated, lost your job, shunned by the industry. He leaned forward slightly, his elbows on the desk, his fingers interlaced in a posture of immense pressure. It sounds like you're in a very bad place right now. I am. I nodded. Then why? His words were slow, but each one landed like a hammer. Should I hire a failure who's entangled in trouble and clearly carrying personal baggage? The air froze. His words were like poisoned needles, finding their way to my most vulnerable wounds. A failure. Those words stung more than Ryan's insults, because, to some extent, they were true. My nails dug into my palms. The pain kept me sharp. I lifted my head and looked directly into his soul-piercing eyes. Mr. Xie, my situation is bad, but it is not a reflection of my abilities. It's a matter of bad luck, or rather, bad judgment in men. As for the trouble and personal baggage, I gave a self-deprecating smile. Ryan Zhou's influence doesn't extend to your domain, does it? He wouldn't dare, and he isn't qualified. A faint, almost imperceptible glint appeared in Oliver's eyes, and as for being a failure, I paused, then threw caution to the wind. Just because I was bitten by a dog doesn't make me a stray. At the very least, I was able to crawl my way here and sit in front of you. And, I added, my voice filled with the resolve of someone burning their bridges, you need an assistant who can withstand your legendary work intensity, someone who can be thrown into the fire and not get burned, someone who's just been beaten down by life and is burning with a fierce desire to prove she's not trash. I looked at him and said, word by word, I think my current state is just right. Then I fell silent. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would break through my ribs. The only sound was the low hum of the air conditioning. Time stretched on, each second an eternity. Oliver remained in the same position, his eyes, as deep as a frozen lake, fixed on me. Just as the cold sweat was about to soak through my shirt, he finally moved. He leaned back, his gaze shifting from my face to my resume. Tomorrow, 8 a.m., he said, his voice as calm as ever. If you're 1 minute late, don't bother coming. I was stunned. My mind went blank. A few seconds later, a wave of pure elation washed over me, so strong it made my eyes burn. Yes, Mr. Xie, I'll be on time. I practically floated out of that cold office. As the door closed behind me, I leaned against the cool wall, my legs weak, my body drained, my back was soaked. Did I get it? I was Oliver Xie's assistant. The hellishly difficult position. It felt surreal. Then my phone vibrated, pulling me back to reality. It was a text from Mark. Just 3 words and a giant exclamation mark. Holy crap, you legend. 8 o'clock. I was standing outside Oliver Xie's office 15 minutes early. My nerves were stretched taut. The people in the secretarial pool were busy with their own work, no one giving me a second glance. At 8 on the dot, the heavy office door slid open. Oliver emerged. He was wearing a sharp, dark gray suit that accentuated his broad shoulders and long legs, his presence commanding. He was looking at a tablet as he walked, his stride purposeful. Good morning, Mr. Xie, I said, immediately approaching him. He didn't break his stride, just gave a curt in response. At 9 a.m., you have the quarterly review with Voyage Tech. The documents are on your desk. At 10:30, you're meeting with the founder of Core Future, Mr. Li, in conference room 2. At 1:30 p.m., you fly to Haicheng for the Semiconductor Summit tomorrow morning. Flight and hotel are booked. At 3 p.m., I recited the day's schedule, my words fast and clear. I had spent until 3 in the morning poring over the previous assistant's extremely brief notes to piece it all together. Oliver continued walking towards the elevator without stopping. He pressed the down button. When the doors opened, he stepped inside. I followed close behind. In the confined space, his cool, oppressive presence instantly surrounded me. I held my breath, staring at the changing floor numbers. The schedule, he finally said, his eyes still on the tablet. Email it to me. Yes, sir, I replied instantly. The elevator reached the underground garage, his private car a sleek, all-black Bentley Mulsanne was waiting. The driver respectfully opened the door. Oliver ducked in. I stood outside, unsure of what to do. The previous assistant had left no notes on protocol. I didn't even know where I was supposed to sit. What are you waiting for? Oliver's voice came from inside the car, devoid of warmth, an invitation. I snapped back to reality and quickly opened the front passenger door. Sliding in, my heart was still pounding. The car pulled away smoothly. Oliver was in the back, still focused on his tablet. I sat in the front, on edge. Mr. Xia, I ventured, turning around, regarding the flight to Haicheng. I saw a forecast for thunderstorms tomorrow. Should we consider moving the flight up to noon? Or, no need. He cut me off without looking up. But, are you questioning my decision? He glanced up, his cold eyes meeting mine in the rearview mirror. A chill went down my spine. No, sir. An assistant's job is to execute, he said, his voice quiet but carrying an undeniable authority. Not to question. Yes, sir. I lowered my head, my fingers clenching the strap of my bag. Day 1. Lesson 1. Shut up and execute. The rest of the day was a blur. I was atop spinning at high speed. Oliver's work pace was suffocating. Meetings bled into one another. In each one, he was concise, direct, and terrifyingly efficient. My brain had to operate at full capacity, taking notes, pulling up data he might need at a moment's notice. My nerves were stretched to their limit. Any hesitation, and his cold eyes would flick in my direction. That silent pressure was more intimidating than any reprimand. At 1 in the afternoon, we arrived at the airport, private jet lounge. I was busy double-checking the final boarding documents and meeting materials. My phone vibrated. It was an unknown local number. I hesitated, then walked to a corner to answer it. Hello, Chloe. A familiar, sleazy voice came through. It was one of Ryan's lackeys, a guy they called Fatty Zhao. What do you want? My voice turned cold. Well, I heard you've landed on your feet, he said in an exaggerated, mocking tone. Working as an assistant for Oliver the Demon at Atlas. Not bad. I'm impressed you managed to crawl your way in there. Ryan wasn't too happy when he heard about it. I gripped the phone. What does that have to do with you? Hey, no need to be so hostile, he chuckled. Ryan said, for old time's sake, he'd give you a way out. You know what kind of place Atlas is, right? They eat people alive. A girl like you won't even know what hit you. He lowered his voice, his tone malicious. If you know what's good for you, you'll quit now. Ryan might even give you a little something for your trouble. Otherwise what? I sneered. Hell, pour champagne on me again. Or have his darling Sophia post some more whiny messages online. Chloe, don't be ungrateful, he snapped. Grateful, I scoffed. My dignity was thrown in a champagne glass by you people. Go back and tell Ryan that my boss now is named Xia. If he has the guts, he can come and ask Oliver Xia for me himself. I hung up. My heart was still pounding with anger. I turned around and almost walked right into someone. Oliver was standing a few feet away, holding a cup of coffee. His face was impassive, his dark eyes watching me with an unreadable expression. He had clearly heard everything. I froze, the blood draining from my face. Mr. Xia, personal grudges, he said, his voice flat, betraying no emotion. Do not belong in work hours. He walked past me towards the boarding gate. Handle it. He left me with those 2 words. I stood there, a cold sweat breaking out on my back. Handle it. How? Ryan was a mad dog, and he clearly wasn't going to let this go. He wouldn't dare to touch Oliver directly, but he would definitely find ways to make my life miserable. The plane was at cruising altitude. Oliver was working on some documents. I sat across from him, by the window, watching the clouds roll by, my mind in turmoil, scared. Oliver's voice cut through the silence. I snapped back to reality and looked at him. He was still looking down at his papers, as if he hadn't said anything. No, I replied immediately, my voice a bit dry. Ryan Zhou, he said, turning a page, his tone as casual as if he were discussing the weather. The 3rd son of the Zhou family, a notorious good-for-nothing, all ego, no substance. He looked up, his eyes on my face. You just told him to come and get you from me. My heart tightened. Mr. Xia, since you've said it, he cut me off, his gaze calm but carrying a startling force. Don't chicken out. He closed the file. At Atlas, you answer to only one person. He can't touch my people, unless, he paused, a faint, cold smirk touching his lips. You're useless and let him play you to death. I looked at him. The clouds turned outside, the sun blinding. He sat there, an unmovable mountain of ice, yet also the most solid protection I could imagine, provided I proved I was useful. I understand, Mr. Xia, I said, my back straight, my voice clear. The panic in my heart was replaced by a fierce drive to prove myself. What was there to be afraid of? The worst that could happen was another public humiliation. Another glass of champagne. Could it be worse than that? But this time, I wouldn't be the one making a lonely, pathetic exit. This time, I had Oliver Sia behind me, a name that even the Zhou family feared. Even if he only saw me as a tool that needed to prove its worth, a tool can still be sharp. The Semiconductor Summit in Haicheng was a high-profile event, a gathering of industry titans. Oliver was, without a doubt, one of the brightest stars there. He was constantly surrounded by people. As his assistant, I had to be on high alert, anticipating his needs, managing his schedule, and handling any unexpected issues. Before a crucial closed-door roundtable meeting, I went to the break room to get him his preferred brand of mineral water. As I reached the door, I heard two women laughing inside. The voices sounded familiar. Sophia, is that the new season's bag? Ryan is so good to you. Oh, you know, my darling Ryan just spoils me. I told him not to, but he insisted. Sophia, my heart sank. Of all the places, I turned to leave. Well, if it isn't Chloe, Sophia's syrupy voice called out, full of surprise and malice. She and another elegantly dressed woman blocked the doorway, coffee cups in hand. What a coincidence. Sophia looked me up and down, her eyes critical and contemptuous. So, you really did become Mr. Sia's little assistant. TSK. Not bad. Getting dumped by Ryan and still managing to find a new sugar daddy. Her friend giggled. Sophia, you have to give her credit. From Ryan Zhou to Oliver Sia. That's quite a step up. Sophia feigned surprise. Oh, I didn't even think of that. Chloe, you're such a dedicated assistant, aren't you? Fetching drinks, serving people. It suits you. You have a lot of experience. After all, their laughter was piercing. People were starting to look. I clutched the bottle of water, my fingertips cold. Blood rushed to my head. Again, this public humiliation. A repeat of the engagement party. No champagne this time, just venomous words. I took a deep breath. Don't chicken out. Oliver's words echoed in my mind. Miss Sue, I said, my voice surprisingly calm. It's working hours. I don't have time for gossip. Excuse me, Mr. Sia is waiting for his water. Water. Sophia raised a theatrical eyebrow, glancing at the bottle in my hand. Mr. Sia just drinks this. You're not very attentive, are you? When Ryan has meetings, I personally brew him hand-ground coffee. She leaned in, her voice a low, malicious whisper. Chloe, don't think you're safe just because you're at Atlas. Ryan told me that Oliver Sia hates employees who mix their personal and professional lives, who bring trouble to his doorstep. What do you think would happen if I told him you were just arguing with me in the break room instead of getting him his water? She smiled, like a venomous snake. How many more days do you think you'll last as his assistant? I looked at her perfectly made-up face, nausea and rage churning inside me, but I forced myself to remain calm. Getting into a fight with her here would be playing right into her hands. It would only make me look unprofessional. Miss Sue, I met her gaze, a professional smile on my face. You worry too much, Mr. Sia hires based on ability and value. As for my job performance, I raised my voice slightly, ensuring the eavesdroppers could hear. Mr. Sia is more than capable of judging that for himself. I don't need you to worry about it. I tried to step around them, but Sophia deliberately moved to block my path again. What's the rush? She purred. Chloe, what do you think would happen if Mr. Sia found out how you used to desperately cling to Ryan, just to get into the Zhou Corporation? Sophia, a stern male voice cut in. We all froze. Ryan was standing a few feet away, his face grim. He was dressed in a sharp suit, but his eyes were fixed on me with a venomous glare. Ryan, darling. Sophia immediately adopted a wounded expression and sidled up to him. Look at her. Shut up, Ryan snapped, shooting her a warning look. She flinched and fell silent. His gaze returned to me, sharp as a poisoned dagger. Chloe, not bad, he said, walking towards me, his voice a low, seething growl. Feeling brave now, using Oliver Sia's name to challenge me, he stood over me, his presence looming. You think climbing onto his bandwagon means you can look down on me? He sneered, his eyes filled with malice. Don't forget, in my eyes, you'll always be the worn-out shoe I got tired of and threw away. Oliver Sia, he scoffed, his tone dripping with disdain. So what if he's powerful? You think he'd risk a war with my family over a plaything of an assistant? What do you think you are? His words were more brutal than Sophia's. Each one was a whip, lashing at my self-respect. Worn-out shoe, plaything, what am I? A roar of blood filled my ears. I gripped the cold bottle of water so hard my nails dug into the plastic. My body trembled with a rage and humiliation so intense I could barely control it. Just as I was about to smash the bottle into his disgusting face, a hand with long, slender fingers reached out from behind me. It calmly took the warped bottle of water from my grasp. A familiar, cool scent of cedarwood enveloped me. I spun around. Oliver was standing right behind me. He was tall and impassive, as if he had just been passing by. He twisted the cap off the bottle and took a drink. The movement was fluid, natural. Then he lifted his eyes, his calm gaze landing on Ryan, whose face had instantly turned a deathly pale. "Ryan Joe," Oliver spoke, his voice quiet, but it carried a weight that silenced the entire area. The break room was dead silent. "What was that you just said?" Oliver's eyes were like cold probes, pinning Ryan to the spot. "My assistant is." "What, exactly?" The color drained from Ryan's face. He clearly hadn't expected Oliver to show up, let alone to have heard him. Mr. Sia." Ryan's bravado vanished, his eyes darting around in panic. "I didn't mean, Chloe and I have some personal history." "Personal history," Oliver repeated, his voice flat but carrying a suffocating pressure. He glanced at my pale face for a fraction of a second, then his gaze returned to Ryan. "This is a summit, not your family's backyard. My people," he paused, his voice ringing with clarity in the silent corner, "are not for you to lecture or pass judgment on. Control your woman." Oliver's gaze flickered to Sophia, who was trembling beside Ryan, her face ashen. His look was one of utter contempt, as if at an insect. "If there is a next time," his voice remained even, but it was as sharp as an icicle, "I won't mind teaching her a lesson on your family's behalf." With that, he ignored Ryan's livid face and Sophia's terrified expression. He turned, still holding the bottle of water. "Assistant Lin," he said, his voice just loud enough for everyone to hear. "The meeting is about to start." "Yes, Mr. Sia," I replied, my voice shaking slightly, not from fear, but from the adrenaline of a near miss. I straightened my back and quickly followed him. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Ryan, his fists clenched, his face a kaleidoscope of rage and humiliation. Sophia was clinging to his arm, tears welling in her eyes. The onlookers' expressions had shifted from amusement to shock, awe, and even a hint of pity for Ryan. Of course, Oliver hadn't said much in my defense. He hadn't refuted any of Ryan's insults. He had simply, and directly, declared ownership. "My people, not for you to judge." It was more powerful than any words of comfort. As we rounded the corner, away from prying eyes, Oliver kept walking. "Just now," he said, his voice even, "why didn't you smash that bottle in his face?" I was taken aback by the question. I chose my words carefully. It was working hours, and the wrong place, and getting physical would have been unprofessional. He stopped for a second. He turned his head and looked at me. His gaze was deep, carrying a faint, unreadable quality. "Acceptable," he said, giving me two curt words. Then he quickened his pace. I hurried to keep up, staring at his tall, imposing back. My heart was still pounding, but this time, it wasn't from humiliation or anger. It was a strange, unfamiliar feeling of being protected, even if that protection was only because I was, for now, his useful assistant. It was enough. Oliver Sia. For the first time, that name no longer represented just coldness and pressure. It now held a hint of warmth, a warmth that was enough for me to find my footing in the mud. After returning from Haicheng, my life accelerated. Oliver's work intensity was, as rumored, absolutely brutal. The saying about peeling 3 layers of skin was no exaggeration. I was a spinning top, lost in a sea of meetings, documents, schedules, and crisis management. Sleep was a luxury, and coffee was my water. But strangely, I didn't break. Instead, I was like a dry sponge, frantically absorbing everything. Oliver was an incredibly demanding mentor. He wasted no words. His instructions were concise to the point of being cold. A single glance, a slight pause, and I had to instantly grasp his meaning. Any mistake, and his cool gaze would sweep over me, the silent pressure more daunting than any scolding. But he was also fair. When I did something right, even a minor detail, he would offer a rare, almost imperceptible sign of approval. Acceptable, fine, or just a slight nod. These meager acknowledgments became my strongest stimulants when I was on the verge of exhaustion. I gradually learned his work habits, his thought processes, even his subtle preferences. He drank his water ice cold, but the glass had to be completely free of condensation. He hated being interrupted while reading documents, but critical errors had to be pointed out immediately. He detested wasting time on meaningless socializing and explanations. Working for him was like dancing on a knife's edge, terrifying, yet exhilarating. Ryan and Sophia had gone quiet. Oliver's warning at the summit had clearly worked. Bullies like Ryan were cowards at heart, but I knew they hadn't given up. They were just waiting for another opportunity. I had to solidify my position. That opportunity came soon. Atlas had its eye on a new energy battery project, Genesis Tech. The technology was cutting edge. The team was solid, and the market potential was huge, but the competition was fierce. Several top VC firms were circling. Oliver was determined to win this project. He led the team personally, investing a significant amount of his time and energy. As his assistant, I was involved in every step, gathering intel on competitors, analyzing the project team's background, sorting through mountains of technical data and market research. I pulled several all-nighters in a row. Finally, we reached the most critical stage. The founders of Genesis were holding their final technical presentation and funding negotiation at their headquarters. Oliver would attend in person. I and a few key members of the investment team went with him. The meeting was held in Genesis' largest conference room. The atmosphere was tense. The founder of Genesis, a man in his 40s named Mr. Gu, was a pragmatic, detail-oriented engineer. He personally explained their technical roadmap and core advantages with clear logic and solid data. Oliver listened intently, occasionally asking sharp, incisive questions that cut to the heart of the matter. Mr. Gu's responses were calm and well-prepared. The professional back-and-forth was intense. I sat slightly behind Oliver, rapidly taking notes, observing the subtle expressions of the opposing team. The negotiation reached a stalemate. Valuation, gambling clauses, board seats, every point was a battle. The air in the room was thick with tension. Just then, my phone vibrated silently in my pocket. Even on vibrate, the sound was jarring in the dead-silent room. My heart clenched. Who would be calling at a time like this? I quickly pulled out my phone to silence it. The screen lit up. The caller ID, Ryan. My blood ran cold. A call from him now could only mean trouble. I immediately declined it, but at the same moment, a text message popped up. From Ryan. It was just one sentence, but it was a bomb that detonated in my mind. Chloe, I have your mother. West Side, abandoned auto repair shop. Come alone. If you call the police or tell Oliver Sia, you'll be getting a corpse. Buzz. My mind went blank. Blood rushed to my head, then drained away just as quickly. I was ice cold. My mom. That lunatic Ryan. He wouldn't. An overwhelming wave of panic and rage washed over me. I gripped my phone, my knuckles white, my body trembling uncontrollably. What do I do? What do I do? Call the police. No. The text said. Tell Oliver. No. Ryan specifically said not to. And this was a personal matter. A huge mess. Oliver hated mixing personal and professional life, but it was my mom. In the conference room, Oliver's deep, powerful voice continued, haggling over a final, crucial clause with Mr. Gu. Mr. Gu, this condition is too harsh. It doesn't align with. I sat behind him, a nervous wreck. Every second was torture. Cold sweat trickled down my forehead. My mother's terrified face flashed before my eyes. Ryan's twisted, hateful face flashed before my eyes. My rational mind told me he was probably bluffing. He wouldn't dare to actually harm her. But what if? What if that lunatic really? I couldn't take that risk. I shot to my feet. The sudden movement made my chair screech against the floor. In an instant, every head in the room turned to me, including Oliver, who had been in the middle of a critical point. He stopped. His dark, cold eyes turned to me, filled with annoyance and a silent question. The pressure was like a physical weight, crushing me. Assistant Lynn, the investment director whispered, frowning. My face was ashen, my lips trembling. I'm sorry. My voice was dry and shaky. Mr. Sia, something at home. An emergency. A real emergency. I couldn't look him in the eye. Overwhelming guilt and panic tore at me. I knew I had screwed up. At the most crucial moment of the most important negotiation, Oliver just looked at me. His expression was deep and cold, like a frozen lake. No emotion, just a chilling scrutiny. Time seemed to stand still. Go. He finally spoke. His voice was calm, unreadable, just that one word. It was like a pardon. I was flooded with relief and shame. Thank you, Mr. Sia. I practically stumbled out of the room, under the confused, and in some cases, disapproving stares of everyone present. The heavy door closed behind me. I leaned against the cold wall, gasping for breath. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it would burst. No time to think. I ran to the elevator, frantically pressing the down button. Only one thought in my mind. West Side. Abandoned auto repair shop. West Side. The abandoned auto repair shop was overgrown with weeds and covered in rust. The air was thick with the acrid smell of rust and oil. I pushed open the rickety metal door. Screech. The sound echoed in the cavernous space. It was dim inside. A few rays of sunlight streamed through the broken windows, illuminating the dust motes dancing in the air. In the center of the shop, my mother was tied to a chair, her mouth covered with tape. When she saw me, her eyes widened in terror, and she shook her head violently, muffled sobs escaping her. "Mom." My heart seized. I started to run towards her. "Stop." A cold voice came from the shadows. Ryan sauntered out. Behind him were two burly men in black t-shirts, one of them Fatty Zhao. "Chloe, you really came alone." Ryan's face was twisted into a triumphant, cruel smile. "So, you are a dutiful daughter, after all." "Ryan, let my mother go." I stared at him, my eyes burning. "You're insane. This is kidnapping. It's a crime." "A crime." He laughed as if it were the funniest joke in the world. "Ooh, I'm so scared." His laughter stopped abruptly, his eyes turning venomous. "Chloe, you think latching onto Oliver Xia means you can challenge me, that you can get back at me for what I did to you?" He walked over to my mother and maliciously patted her pale, terrified face. My mother struggled violently. "Don't touch her," I screamed. "Does it hurt to see?" he said, pleased with my reaction. "Let me tell you, this is just the beginning." He pointed at me. "Today, you have two choices. Either you get on your knees, kowtow to me 3 times, bark like a dog 3 times, and beg me to let your mother go." He paused, his expression growing even more vicious. "Or," he gestured to the side. Fatty Zhao picked up a can of foul-smelling liquid. "Gasoline. I'll let you watch how well your old mother burns," he hissed. My mother was frantic, struggling so hard the chair legs scraped against the concrete. "No, Ryan, you wouldn't." My blood ran cold, a wave of pure terror washing over me. "You think I wouldn't?" His face was a mask of rage. "Choose, Chloe, kneel like a dog, or watch your mother become a roast pig." Sweat soaked through my clothes, my nails dug into my palms. I looked at my mother's desperate, terrified eyes. I looked at Ryan's twisted, insane face. I looked at the can of gasoline in Fatty Zhao's hands. Rage, an unprecedented rage. It erupted like a volcano in my chest. It burned away all the fear. Why did I have to be repeatedly trampled by this piece of trash? Why did my mother have to suffer because of me? Kneel, bark like a dog. To hell with that. I had had enough. "Ryan." I looked up, my eyes locked on his, my voice hoarse with fury, but carrying a wild, desperate edge. "If you dare to touch a single hair on my mother's head today," I gritted my teeth, every word squeezed out, "I, Chloe Lynn, swear to God, as long as there is a breath left in my body, I will drag you, and your entire family." My gaze swept over them, my eyes like poison daggers, "down to hell, and make every single one of you pay for what you did to my mother." My voice wasn't loud, but it exploded like thunder in the empty building. It was filled with a final, soul-deep hatred. The sneer on Ryan's face froze. Fatty Zhao and the other thug instinctively took a step back, shaken by my raw ferocity. You're trying to scare me," Ryan stammered, his bravado failing. "Scare you?" I sneered, walking towards him, ignoring his henchmen, ignoring the gasoline. My eyes were fixed on him. "Ryan, you asked me on what grounds I could challenge you, right? On the grounds that I now work for Oliver Xia. On the grounds that I am under his watch every single day. If I die here today, or if anything happens to my mother, do you think Oliver Xia will just let it go? Do you think he won't be able to trace it back to you? Do you think he would spare a fool who touched one of his people, just to save your family's face?" I advanced on him, my voice growing shriller. "Think carefully, Ryan. Touching me is a direct insult to Oliver Xia. If you pour that gasoline today, you won't be burning my mother, you'll be burning yourself, you'll be burning your family's future." My words were like icy drills, piercing his nerves. His face twitched violently. The madness in his eyes was replaced by a flicker of fear. Oliver Xia. That name was like an invisible mountain. He dared to pour champagne on me, to slander me online, to threaten me over the phone, but would he dare to commit murder? Would he dare to burn Oliver Xia's assistant to death in an abandoned factory? He wouldn't. The Zhou family couldn't afford Oliver Xia's wrath. "Boss." Fatty Zhao's hand, holding the gasoline can, was trembling. This crazy bitch might be right. Ryan stared at me, his eyes a whirlwind of emotions, rage, resentment, and a sliver of fear and humiliation at having his bluff called. In that tense standoff, bang, a deafening crash. The rickety metal door was kicked open from the outside. Blinding sunlight flooded the room, illuminating the dust. A tall, imposing figure stood silhouetted against the light, a black shirt, a severe profile, like a god descending. A cold, deadly voice echoed through the silent building. "You dare touch my people." It was Oliver. Time seemed to freeze. Everyone was frozen in place. Ryan's expression contorted from a snarl to one of pure terror, his face a ghostly white. Fatty Zhao and the other thug were so scared that the can of gasoline clattered to the floor, the pungent liquid spilling out, but they didn't dare to move. My mother stopped struggling, her tear-filled eyes fixed on the door. I was rooted to the spot, my heart having stopped at the sound of the door being kicked in. I stared at the figure in the light, in utter disbelief. How did he get here? How did he know where I was? Oliver walked in, his leather shoes making dull thuds on the grimy concrete floor. Each step seemed to land on Ryan's heart. Behind him were two men in black suits, their presence as cold and hard as iron. They weren't ordinary bodyguards. One glance from them was enough to make Fatty Zhao's legs turn to jelly. Oliver didn't look at them. His gaze first fell on my mother, tied up and tear-stained. Then, it moved to me. His eyes lingered on my face for a moment. I must have looked ghastly, my eyes still burning with a crazed hatred. His brow furrowed almost imperceptibly. His expression was complex, like a ripple disturbing the surface of a frozen lake. Was it scrutiny, or a faint, almost undetectable, anger? Finally, his gaze, like a sort of judgment, slowly moved to the ashen-faced Ryan. "Ryan Zhou," Oliver spoke, his voice quiet, but carrying a chill that froze the air. "Your family's upbringing is truly an eye-opener." Ryan shuddered, his lips trembling. Mr. Xia, a misunderstanding. It's all a misunderstanding," he stammered. "A misunderstanding." Oliver's lips curved into a cold smile, but there was no humor in his eyes. "Kidnapping, threats, attempted arson." With every word, Ryan grew paler. "Do you need me to remind you which article of the criminal code that falls under?" Ryan's legs gave out, and he almost collapsed. "Mr. Xia, please, forgive me," he babbled. I was just trying to scare her. I wasn't going to do anything. I swear, I wouldn't dare touch your people. It was all this bitch. Shut up." Oliver's voice wasn't loud, but it cut through Ryan's babbling like a knife. One of the men in black moved with lightning speed. There was a sharp crack, followed by Ryan's pig-like squeal. His arm was twisted behind his back at an unnatural angle, dislocated. "Arg!" Ryan's scream echoed through the factory. Fatty Zhao and the other thug were so terrified they dropped to their knees. "Please, Mr. Xia, it wasn't us. It was all him. He forced us." Oliver didn't even look at them. His eyes were back on me. "What are you waiting for?" His voice was back to its usual flat tone, but it was an undeniable command. "Go untie your mother." "Oh, yes." I snapped back to reality, pushing down the storm of emotions in my heart, and rushed over. I fumbled with the tape and the ropes. Mom, are you okay? Are you hurt?" My voice was choked with sobs. Chloe, my mother, having survived the ordeal, clung to me and burst into tears. I was so scared. I held her tight, comforting her, my own tears streaming down my face. "It's okay, Mom. It's okay now." Oliver stood by, watching silently. He didn't rush me. When my mother's sobs subsided, he gestured to one of his men. "Escort her to the car." "Yes, Mr. Xia." The man gently but firmly helped my mother to her feet. "Chloe." My mother looked at me, worried. "It's okay, Mom. You go with this gentleman. I'll be right there." As my mother was led away, the factory was quiet again. Just Oliver, me, and the whimpering, hate-filled Ryan, along with his two kneeling thugs. Oliver walked over to Ryan. He looked down at him. Ryan, grimacing in pain, looked up, his eyes filled with terror. Mr. Xia, I know I was wrong. Please, have mercy." Oliver didn't speak. He bent down slightly. His cold gaze was like a physical weight on Ryan's face. Then he did something that surprised both me and Ryan. He reached out his long, slender fingers, and gently brushed a speck of dust from the collar of Ryan's expensive, now filthy suit. The movement was elegant, almost casual, as if he were flicking away a piece of lint. "Ryan Zhou," he said, his voice low and smooth, like a cold serpent coiling around one's neck. "Go back and tell your father. If the Zhou family doesn't know how to raise a son, I don't mind." He paused, his fingers tightening on Ryan's collar, wrinkling the expensive fabric, cleaning house for him. Ryan's eyes widened in terror, and he began to tremble violently. Cleaning house, coming from Oliver Xia. Those words were spoken lightly, but they carried a chilling, bloody weight. Get out. Oliver released him and straightened up, like an emperor pardoning an ant. Take your people, and don't dirty my place. Ryan scrambled to his feet, ignoring the pain in his arm. Fatty Zhao and the other thug helped him up, and they fled the factory in a pathetic, terrified mess. The spilled gasoline remained, its acrid smell filling the air. The factory was quiet again, just me and Oliver, and the mess they had left behind. Dust motes danced in the beams of light. I stood there, my hands and feet cold. The relief of survival was mixed with a profound, complex emotion that I couldn't name. Mr. Xia, I began, my voice hoarse. Thank you, for saving my mother. He turned, his deep, dark eyes met mine. They were no longer the cold, deadly eyes he had used on Ryan. They were something else, like he was examining a piece of broken porcelain that had been hastily glued back together. Chloe, he said my name. Your performance today. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. The first half was a 0. My heart sank. Of course, leaving in the middle of that crucial negotiation, you brought a personal grudge into a professional setting, causing a major disruption, he stated, his voice flat. I lowered my head in shame. I'm sorry, Mr. Xia, it was my fault. The second half, he cut me off, was a barely passing grade. I looked up, stunned. I met his deep, dark eyes. At least, he said, a flicker of something unreadable in his gaze. You have a spine. You have a spine. He said I have a spine. A sudden warmth rushed to my eyes, and they began to burn. I bit my lip hard to keep the tears from falling. The Genesis Project. His tone shifted back to business. Mr. Gu was impressed with your professionalism and sharp insights during the initial preparations. Despite your early departure, your contributions were not overlooked. I was stunned. The Genesis Project. It was a success, even after I had screwed up the final negotiation. He specifically requested. Oliver looked at me, his eyes sharp and professional again, that you be the one to handle the follow-up. He gave me a look. Don't disappoint me again. With that, he turned and strode out of the factory. His back was tall and straight, just as it was when he arrived, silhouetted against the light. I stood there, watching him disappear into the blinding sunlight. The smell of gasoline was still strong, but something inside me was burning hotter. First half, 0. Second half, barely passing. You have a spine. I will be in charge of the Genesis Project. Don't disappoint me again. I raised my hand and wiped my face, wiping away the moisture, and with it, all the weakness and confusion. I ran after him. The sunlight outside was blinding. Oliver's car was parked by the road. My mother was in the back seat, still shaken. Oliver was standing by the car, on the phone. I walked over. He hung up and turned around. The sunlight gilded the sharp lines of his face. Mr. Xia, I said, my voice clear. He looked at me. I will handle the Genesis Project. I met his gaze, my voice steady, and I will not disappoint you again. He looked at me, for a few seconds, then he gave a very slight nod. Get in. He opened the car door and got into the front passenger seat. I took a deep breath, opened the back door, and sat next to my mother. The car started, driving away from that nightmare. I took my mother's cold hand, watching the scenery fly by. My heart was still beating powerfully, but this time, it wasn't from fear or anger. It was a new kind of strength. I knew, from this day on, the Chloe who was doused in champagne, called a worn-out shoe, and trampled into the mud, was dead. The one who survived was the assistant with a spine, who had barely passed, and who Oliver Xia had deemed useful enough to keep. The road ahead was still full of thorns, but I was no longer afraid. The successful launch of the Genesis Project was a huge victory. My position at Atlas was secure. I was no longer the troubled ex-girlfriend, but Assistant Lin, who had earned her place through sheer competence. Oliver remained as demanding as ever, but there was a new, almost imperceptible trust in his demeanor. He started giving me more critical, more important projects. The pressure increased exponentially, but I handled it, like a piece of iron being forged in fire. I was becoming sharper, stronger. Ryan had disappeared completely. I heard his family had sent him abroad to some remote place to cultivate his character. Sophia had also wisely vanished from my life. The world was quiet. There was only endless work, and Oliver's eternally impassive face. Time flew by. One rainy night, I was working late. The building was almost empty. I was staring at my computer, my eyes dry and sore, checking the final data for a cross-border merger. The light in Oliver's office was still on. He was working late too. The internal line on my desk rang. I picked it up. Come in. Oliver's voice came through, with a hint of exhaustion. I went to his office. He was leaning back in his chair, his eyes closed, rubbing his temples. The light softened the severe lines of his face, and there were faint shadows under his eyes. Mr. Xie. He opened his eyes. They were bloodshot. This valuation model. He pointed to a file on his desk, his voice a bit hoarse. The sensitivity analysis in the third section. The data is not solid enough. Redo it. I picked up the file. It was a critical report for a meeting first thing in the morning. Redo it. Meant another all-nighter. Yes, Mr. Xie, I said without hesitation. He looked at me, his gaze lingering on my face for a few seconds. It's late, he said suddenly. I was surprised. It's raining hard outside, he added, his eyes turning to the window. Rain hammered against the glass. The city lights were a blur. Yes, it is, I said, unsure of what to say. He was silent for a few moments. Did you drive? He asked. No, I shook my head. He just said, and then nothing. I stood there, holding the file, not sure if I should stay or go. Mr. Xie, well, I'll get started on this, then. He didn't answer. Just as I was about to turn and leave, he said, wait. I stopped. He stood up and walked around his massive desk, towards me. His tall frame cast a shadow over me. The familiar, cool scent of cedarwood enveloped me. My heart skipped a beat. He held out his hand. In it was a car key, black, sleek, with a small, Winkby logo. A Bentley. Take my car home, he said, his voice as flat as ever. It's raining hard. It'll be difficult to get a taxi. I was stunned. I stared at the key in his hand, my mind blank. Mr. Xie, email me the file when you're done, he said, cutting me off and pressing the key into my hand. The cool metal held the warmth of his palm. Drive safe. With that, he turned and went back to his desk, as if that brief, strange moment had never happened. I held the heavy key, my palm tingling. I walked out of his office in a daze, sitting in the driver's seat of the cold, luxurious Bentley. I started the engine. The windshield wipers swished back and forth. The car was filled with his faint, cedarwood scent. The rainy city was a blur of lights, and my heart, in the warmth of the car and the scent that surrounded me, was in turmoil. After that rainy night, something quietly shifted. Oliver was still a man of few words, still cold, but the tasks he assigned me became more and more central to the business. Occasionally, after I'd pulled a few all-nighters, he would say, get some rest. At a business dinner, he would discreetly deflect unwanted advances directed at me. On a business trip, he would casually ask, is your mother feeling better? These small, almost imperceptible gestures were like pebbles dropped into a calm lake, sending ripples through my heart. I carefully maintained my professional role, never crossing the line. He was a god on a pedestal. I was just a useful sword at his feet. Until a meticulously planned business gala, Oliver was the center of attention. I stood by his side, a step behind, his ever-efficient assistant. A woman in a deep neck, winered dress approached, her every movement exuding a seductive charm. Mr. Xie, long time no see, she purred. It was the famous actress, Eva Cheen. The look she gave him was anything but subtle. Miss Jean, he nodded, his tone distant. She pouted, leaning in. You're so hard to get a hold of, Mr. Xie. Her heavy perfume was suffocating. Oliver subtly shifted away. She continued to press, her eyes flicking to me with a dismissive glance. Is this your new assistant? So young and pretty. Her tone was loaded with insinuation. The implication was clear. I kept my professional smile and said nothing. Oliver's face visibly hardened. Miss Jean, he said, his voice icy. My assistant is only responsible for work. Eva's smile faltered, but she quickly recovered. Of course, but the position by your side isn't an easy one to hold. I heard the previous assistants didn't last long. This young lady should be careful. It was a blatant provocation. Just as Oliver was about to respond, Eva stumbled, lurching towards him. The glass of red wine in her hand tilted, its contents aimed straight for his chest. In a split second, my body reacted before my brain. I stepped in front of him. Splash. The cold, sticky wine soaked through my white silk blouse. A collective gasp went through the crowd. Eva, now steady on her feet, feigned apology, but I saw the triumphant glint in her eyes. Oh my, I'm so sorry, Mr. Xie. And you, miss, I'm so clumsy. Oliver looked down at me, at the garish red stain spreading across my chest. His expression turned terrifying. Like a calm sea before a hurricane, he slowly looked up, his eyes like two ice picks, and fixed them on Eva. Miss Jean. His voice was quiet, but it silenced the entire hall. Your act, he said, his voice dripping with a bone-chilling coldness, has gone too far. The color drained from her face. Mr. Xia, get out. One word, cold and final. Humiliated, Eva fled the room. Oliver took off his suit jacket. The warm, black fabric, carrying his cedarwood scent, enveloped me, shielding me from the cold wine and the prying eyes. Go take care of it, he said, his voice low. In the restroom, I looked at my reflection, a pale woman, her chest a mess, but wrapped securely in a man's large, black suit jacket, a clear sign of protection. When I returned, Oliver was standing where I had left him, a circle of empty space around him. No one dared to approach. The rest of the evening, I stayed by his side, wrapped in his jacket, cocooned in his silent, formidable presence. On the way home, as I was about to take off the jacket to return it, he said, "Keep it on." As I got out of the car, he called my name, Chloe. In the dim light, his face was obscured. From now on, his voice was low and clear in the quiet car. "Stand behind me," he said. Then he looked away. "Go on up." I stood there, clutching the jacket that held his warmth and his scent. Stand behind me, not in front of me. My heart, in the rainy night, began to beat uncontrollably. Something had changed, completely. The project was a huge success. At the celebration party, I stood by Oliver's side, no longer a timid assistant, but a confident professional. People praised my work, and for the first time, he openly acknowledged it. It was Assistant Lynn's contribution. Later, I stepped out onto the terrace for some fresh air. Sophia was there. She looked haggard and worn, a shadow of her former self. "You won," she said, her voice bitter. "I give up." She told me Ryan had been abandoned by his family and was a mess. She blamed me for her downfall. "Sophia," I said calmly, "you chose your path. You chose to be a vine, clinging to a tree. When the tree fell, so did you. I chose to carve my own path, even if it was through thorns. A person can only truly rely on themselves." She stared at me, then left, a broken woman. When I returned to the party, Oliver's eyes found me across the room. On the way home, he broke the silence. "Sophia came to see you." "Yes." "What did she say?" "Nothing important." A few minutes passed. "Chloe." "Yes, you did well." My heart jumped. Was that a compliment? "The Genesis project. You handled it very well." "It was my job, Mr. Xia." Another silence. "Have you thought about the future?" he asked suddenly. "The future?" "Yes," he said, looking out the window. "You can't be an assistant forever." My blood ran cold. Was he letting me go? "Mr. Xia, Atlas is launching a new subsidiary for tech incubation," he said, not looking at me. "It needs a director." I held my breath. "Do you dare to take it?" He turned, his deep, starlit eyes fixed on me. A subsidiary director. The challenge was immense. My mind reeled. "You don't have to answer now," he said. "You have a week." The car was silent again. I looked at his reflection in the window. My heart was pounding. Do I dare? Why not? A week later, I stood in his office. "I've made my decision." I met his gaze. "I'll take the position." He looked at me for a few long seconds. "Reason?" "I want to see," I said, my voice clear, "how high I can climb on my own." A ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Good." The new role was harder than I could have imagined. I was on my own, responsible for everything. I saw Oliver less and less. When we did meet, it was in boardrooms, across long tables. He was the CEO, I was a subsidiary director, the man who had given me his car keys, who had draped his jacket over my shoulders, who had told me to stand behind him. Seemed like a dream. This was reality, until a charity auction. I was there as a representative of my new company. Oliver was there, the center of attention as always. The final item for auction was a personal donation from him, a necklace named Stardust, a flawless blue diamond on a simple platinum chain. It was breathtaking. It sold for a staggering $23 million. Later, as I was leaving the restroom, a figure blocked my path. It was Ryan. He was a wreck, thin, haggard, reeking of alcohol and resentment. "Chloe," he hissed, his eyes filled with a crazed hatred. "Look at you now, so high and mighty. Does it feel good? Climbing up by stepping on me." He lunged for me. "Let go of her." A voice as cold as hell cut through the air. Oliver was there. His eyes were a storm of fury as he looked at Ryan's hand on my wrist. Ryan flinched and let go. Oliver didn't look at him. His eyes were on the red mark on my wrist. He looked up at Ryan. "It seems," he said, his voice dangerously calm, "your lesson abroad was not enough." He gestured, and two of his security men appeared, dragging a whimpering Ryan away. The hallway was silent. He came to me, his tall frame blocking the world. He gently touched the red mark on my wrist. "Does it hurt?" he asked, his voice low. I looked up and saw something in his eyes I had never seen before, not ice, but molten lava. It was for me. "No, I'm fine," I stammered. He took off his suit jacket and, for the second time, draped it over my shoulders, pulling me into the cocoon of his scent. "Chloe," his voice was a low rumble. "Have I ever told you," he paused, "that you look foolish when you try to take a hit for me?" I was speechless. "Even more foolish with red wine," he added, a hint of a smile on his lips. He reached out and gently brushed a stray strand of hair from my forehead. "From now on," his voice dropped, a mix of command and a strange, deep intimacy, "let me handle these foolish things." His gaze was intense, all-consuming. "You just need to." He leaned in, his warm breath by my ear. "Stand by my side." The world dissolved. Stand by my side. Not behind me, by my side. I looked up at his face, at the raw emotion he no longer tried to hide. All reason, all boundaries, shattered. "Oliver," I said, using his first name for the first time. "The necklace you auctioned off." I watched his eyes darken. "The name is too common." "Stardust." I tilted my head, meeting his searing gaze. "Why not call it?" I paused, and said, word by word, "The North Star." 3 months later, a quiet, luxurious wedding on a private island. My father walked me down the aisle, towards the man in a white suit waiting under an arch of flowers. The sun shone on his face, softening his severe features. His eyes were filled with a gentle, smiling light. "Do you, Oliver Sia, take Chloe Lynn to be your wife?" He looked at me, his gaze full of a devotion that felt like coming home. "I do," he said, his voice a deep, steady promise. "Do you, Chloe Lynn?" I looked at this man, who had pulled me from the mud, forged me in fire, and placed me by his side. All the pain, the struggle, the tears, they had all led me to this. Tears streamed down my face. "I do," he smiled, a brilliant, breathtaking smile that melted all the ice. He slid a simple platinum ring onto my finger. Inside, 2 small letters were engraved. CJ. He leaned down, his lips, warm and tasting of the sea breeze, met mine, gentle, yet branding my soul. "Mrs. Sia," he whispered in my ear, "for the rest of our lives." I held his hand, our fingers intertwined. The ring on my finger sparkled in the sun. I looked out at the endless blue horizon. The weight of this ring, it was just right.